All right, 8 days. It was nice to have a 3-day weekend. Hope you guys enjoyed yourself. All right, make sure you got your cameras on, guys. This is not something you're just watching. You are a class participant, which means you need to be here. Means, hey, look, I'm here. See me, camera? Mr. Brock's here. You can see it on your camera. So, camera's on, so we know that you're here enjoying our company in class. Otherwise, I have to count you absent. I've got to have people absent before. The camera's not on. I don't even know if they're here. So, got to be on with your camera. Let's see. Yeah, the great 3-day weekend there. Yesterday was a fun day. It was very cold, so you wouldn't stay inside, but there was lots to do yesterday inside. It was Martin Luther King Jr. Day, so like all the government offices were closed. Couldn't do anything there. No mail, anything like that. It's nice to have that day. They had the presidential inauguration. President Trump was sworn in yesterday, so there was plenty of stuff on TV to see with all that. There was activities all day long, and ended up with him going to 3 different balls last night and with dancing and all that stuff. 3 different ones. There's always a bunch of different activities on inauguration days for presidents. And then we had the college football national championship game last night. So it was a pretty big day. A lot of things going on. So it was great to not have to have school mixed in all the middle of that. So we could take time to enjoy any of that activities we wanted to be involved in. But anyways, and my house is getting closer and closer. Just talking with my wife at lunch, and I may have our cabinets ready next week. So yes, gotta get the flooring in this week. Maybe still working on flooring next week, and get the cabinets in, then get our countertops in, and then they can hook up the sink and everything. Oh, so maybe by Valentine's Day. I don't think we're going to make it by the end of the month, but maybe by Valentine's Day we'll be home. So getting close, getting excited. Hey, there we go. Montserrat got her camera working. She had to come reboot to get in there, but good job, Montserrat. So, all right, let's pull up our cybersecurity on our screen and see what waits for us this week. Oh man, have I still not got my work done? I did first. I didn't do last week's. Got to get my work done. IDS basics. But we're looking at this week, January 26th, is IDS Essentials. IDS Essentials. So let's go take a look at that. 4.02. All right, intrusion detection systems. That's what I looked at last week. We're continuing this module on intrusion detection systems. All right, host-based intrusion detection systems. Intrusion detection systems are typically divided into 2 types, depending on what their responsibilities are. So you either have a host intrusion detection system, which is defined as a type of IDS that monitors a computer system for unexpected behavior or drastic changes to the system state. So it monitors that computer system. Or it's also called HIDS, HIDS, because Host Intrusion Detection System, HIDS, or NIDS for Network Intrusion Detection System. And it's defined as a system that uses passive hardware sensors to monitor traffic on a specific segment of the network. So a HIDS, the host kind here, is designed to run as software on a host computer system. The HIDS runs as a background service that monitors and analyzes the machine's logs, any system events that happen, application interactions. HIDS do not typically monitor network activity going to and from the host computer system, right? Because it's not checking the network. It's merely checking this computer. Is everything okay with this computer? Is it operating properly? A HIDS is often configured to send alerts to a centralized management server for administration review. Something happens on this computer, wait a minute, this doesn't look right. Let me send an alert so someone can check this. The centralized server, that's who it sends the alerts to sometimes, does not actually scan the systems because that's the HID. The HIDS does that. It's there to collect the alerts from the HIDS in one central location, because chances are you have a network, you may have 100 computers connected. They each may have their own host intrusion detection system, and they're all connected to this one centralized management server. And the server will collect information from those 100 different computers. If 7 of those computers have a problem, their intrusion detection system notices a problem, those 7 will send it all. They're each just sending one, but that centralized management server is going to go, oh, wait, these 7 computers need checked on. Something's going on. There's something wrong. It doesn't do it. It just collects the information so the administrator can look at it and go, oh, look, I've got 7 different computers I need to check on. Since HIDS is the host, captures information from a single host, like a server, HIDS must be installed individually on every host. So if you're using a host intrusion detection system, each computer you're trying to monitor must have its own installation of that IDS. Some organizations may configure an IDS on each client workstation, which also requires manual installation. So the disadvantage of using HIDS is that if the system as a whole is compromised, then maybe the log files are going to be compromised as well, which means reports from the HIDS will not be accurate. But one major advantage is that HIDS can keep checksums on files. Checksums are used to detect errors and alterations, so they could see if some file has been changed, right? So this ability allows HIDS to determine where a file was altered in an attack and make recovery easier. So you can go look and say, oh, this didn't used to have a problem. What happened? And it'll tell you all the changes that's been made to that file. You can say, oh, this change right here, that's not good. So host-based IDS, you have an IDS system that it may be connected to, which you have the internet, you have a firewall that it goes through, a router, and you have these other hosts. So they may all have their own host systems and send it to this host right here, right? All 4 hosts listed there, host, and an IDS system. This would be your network system right here, because all of these hosts down here are connected to this network. So this would be HIDS at the bottom and an NIDS at the top. Page 2. Network-based intrusion detection system. So a NIDS operates by capturing all the network traffic it sees. It's similar to a sniffer, because we have packet sniffers, but it has the added feature of being able to automatically analyze all the traffic to detect malicious activity. A NIDS could be placed in front of the firewall or behind. It'll go either place. If the NIDS is placed in front of the firewall, then it'll see all the traffic that's entering and leaving the network. So this is helpful to see what the firewall could be missing in its current configuration. If you put it behind the firewall, it's only going to see what the firewall allows through, right? Because the firewall is going to block some stuff. And so your NIDS will never see it if the firewall doesn't let it through. While there's going to be less traffic, it does not provide a complete picture of the attacks that the network may be suffering. Thus, a lot of the attacks are already being blocked by the firewall, so you're not going to know about those. So best practices from industry certification organizations to put one in front of the firewall and one after. So use 2 different network IDSs. So one in front, one behind. Then you can compare and see what is the firewall actually doing good, how much is the firewall catching, and how much is getting through. So when malicious events are flagged by the NIDS device, this device sends alerts on traffic patterns or signatures to the network administrator. So a person gets involved. These alerts can be sent out via email, text, or a centralized server for review. So they need to be monitored in order to know what events occurred. So the administrator can analyze the logs Could adjust the firewall rule sets. Maybe you're seeing, oh, the firewall should be catching this. I need to change this setting on the firewall. You could remove or block suspect hosts and processes from networks. Like, oh, this computer over here is totally corrupted. I need to just remove it from the network and not even allow it to be connected to the other computers. Till we get some antivirus over there and figure out what else corrupted. So that may be something to do. Just remove a host that's infected. Or maybe you need to deploy additional security controls to mitigate any threats identified by the administrator. So that's that network IDS up at the top. Okay, page 3. So typically, a network IDS is composed of sensors, one or more management servers, multiple consoles, and sometimes one or more database servers. So these components are like other types of IDS technologies, except for the sensors. A network IDS sensor monitors and analyzes network activity on one or more network segments. The network interface cards, also known as NIC and IC, that perform monitoring will accept all incoming packets they see, regardless of their intended destinations. So here's the 2 formats that sensors are available in. Could be an appliance-based sensor. All right, this consists of specialized hardware and sensor software. So there's actually something physically you have to install. The hardware is usually optimized for sensor use, including specialized NICs and NIC drivers for efficient capture of packets, and specialized processors or other hardware components that assist in analysis. So part or all of the IDS software might reside in firmware for increased efficiency, because it's faster for it to be something that's firmware than be software that runs on that. Appliances use the personalized, hardened operating system that administrators are not intended to access directly. All right. Or it could be software only. Some vendors will sell sensor software without the appliance, the hardware that goes with it. Administrators can install the software onto your host that meets certain specifications. The sensor software might include a customized operating system, or it might be installed onto a standard operating system like any other application. So maybe you just install it in Windows, or maybe there's a modified version of Windows that will be installed using that sensor software. All right, inline versus passive. So in addition to choosing the appropriate network for the components, you also need to decide where the IDS sensors should be located. So let's check out the difference between inline and passive sensor modes. Inline. An inline sensor is deployed so the network traffic that it monitors must pass through it. It's in line with where everything's going. Everything has to go through it. Much like the traffic flow with a firewall, because everything goes through the firewall. The main reason for deploying IDS sensors inline is to enable them to stop attacks by blocking network traffic, because they can just stop it from going through there if everything has to pass through that sensor. Inline sensors are typically placed where network firewalls and other network security devices would be placed, at the divisions between the networks, such as connections with external networks and borders between different internal networks that should be separated. Then there could be a passive sensor. A passive sensor is deployed to monitor a copy of the actual network traffic, so no network traffic actually passes. You have a device that all the traffic is copied and sent to this passive sensor just so we can see what was coming through. Can't do anything about it because it's not part of the network traffic, but it watches it. So these are usually deployed so they can monitor key network locations like the divisions between networks and key network segments, like the activity on a DMZ subnet. So page 4. Signature versus behavior detection. So let's take a look at how these two approaches differ. So if it's signature based, it's going to look for pattern matching. It has a database of known attack signatures, and it's trying to check that pattern to see if that's what's coming in. And it has to be constantly updated with whatever the latest definitions. As they discover new attack signatures, that to be uploaded. And many attack tools do not conform to specific signatures. So you may not catch it at all because it's looking for these patterns of these attack signatures. Then there could be behavior-based. trained sensor to recognize baseline normal behavior. Heuristics, learning from experience, are statistical model of behavior. So these are a little different, signature-based or behavior-based. Most IDS use a combination of detection methods, but there's advantages and disadvantages, as you can imagine, to either way. Signature-based detection, the two principal vulnerabilities of this are that the protection is only as good as the last update, right? The last signature update, and that no protection is provided against threats that can't be matched in the pattern database. So it has to be updated constantly because it's checking to see, okay, I've got the list of bad stuff, and I'm looking for that bad stuff as it's passing through. But if there's a new threat that was just identified, if you haven't updated your list, it's going to let it go through. Another issue is that it's difficult to configure pattern matching that can detect attacks based on a complex series of communications. It may not match that pattern exactly, and it's hard to figure it out. Behavior-based detection can address vulnerabilities associated with signature detection by detecting previously unknown threats. So behavior-based doesn't have to have a list that's checking against. For example, consider a user who normally logs in his computer at 9 a.m. every weekday and spends most of the morning access this online ordering application. So you know their job starts at 9 a.m. That's when they get on the computer, and you know what they usually look at because this is what their job pertains to. Subsequently, the user accesses several supplier websites every afternoon, and then they go home at 5 p.m. So the network knows the behavior of that computer. Oh, that computer's going to turn on at 9. They're going to look at this site, this site, this site, and generally at 5 o'clock, they're going to go home. So if the intrusion detection system logs the user accessing the system at 3 a.m. in the morning, and install some kind of new software on the machine, the behavior-based will say, wait, this is not normal behavior, and it'll flag this as suspicious. Hey, you need to take a look at this, administrator, because this is something outside the norm and needs to be checked to see if it's a bad actor. And of course, a potential disadvantage of this approach is that some legitimate activities might be incorrectly identified as suspicious, right? Maybe this person travels during this job sometimes, flew over to London. In London, when it's 9 o'clock in the morning, it was only like 3 a.m. here. And so when he logged on, the computer went, wait, there's something unusual, but it really wasn't. So sometimes it could block stuff that is actually legitimate because he was in a different time zone. And so that's why it looked weird. All right, page 5. IDS detection and audit records. Analytics is the process of reviewing the events and incidents that trigger IDS and IPS. The aim is to ensure that only genuine incidents are being recorded and that incidents are not being missed and going unreported. So a false positive, we know what a false positive is. That's where it's legitimate behavior, but it is identified as an incident. Uh-oh, there's a problem here. No, there's no problem. That's fine. That's legitimate. That's a real user. They're doing real stuff that needs to be done. Conversely, a false negative is where malicious traffic is not identified, where your detection system goes, oh, okay, they're logged on. Have a good day. And then it's not. They're doing something they're not supposed to be doing. It's not the actual user because they're going to places they don't go, but it didn't pick it up and gave a false negative. High volumes of false positives can blind the incident response team, right? If you're getting all these alerts and you're checking them, well, this is correct. Oh, this is okay. That's all right. That's fine. Eventually, you're going to think, okay, it's just sending me all bad ones, and you may miss something that really is, so you need to check onto. But this can result in attacks going undetected. This means the IDS and the IPS require a high degree of tuning. You got to fine tune it to work optimally. Think of it like a home alarm. If your alarm goes off too many times, alerting the police or fire department to come to your house, they may assume that a real emergency is another false alarm. It's like, oh, that's the 6th time this week that alarm's gone off. We're not going to go over there today. And this is the one time it's real. When an IDS is looking for things, it's creating an audit record that can be used by administrators to identify potential threats. So here's the information that's typically logged by a network IDS sensor. Timestamp, usually date and time, lets you know when this event happened. What is it? What is the event of the alert? What were the network transport and application layer protocols? How much bytes was transmitted? How much data did it send? What is the source and destination TCP or UDP ports? So what ports was it using? Where was it sending this in the network? Or the types and codes? The connection or session ID. Who is the person that is logged in? What does it say that person is? The source and destination IP addresses. What's the IP address of the computer that sent this and the computer that received this? It has a rating. Is this a priority thing? Severity, impact, confidence. How severe is this incident? This needs to be the exact first thing you need to look at. This is major. Or, okay, this kind of looks odd. When you get around to it, check this out. State-related information. Like, was this an authenticated username? What's the state of this? And then any application requests and responses. What did the network computer ask for and what did they actually receive? So that's the type of information they might get. So page 6 is our knowledge check, as we've been doing every lesson. Which of the following captures information from a single host, like a server, a router, or a firewall? Got a timestamp, an NIDS, an HIDS, or a log. So let me look at the chat there and make sure I can see what you guys are putting in there. So which of those captures info from a single host? Should be a host IDS, I would think. Good job, Jacob. Host IDS. Yes, and HIDS typically captures information where it's installed on a host machine. All right, question 2. Which of the following operates by inspecting all traffic on a network segment to detect malicious activity? So this is inspecting everything on the network segment. So is that also an HIDS, or is that a timestamp, or is that a log, or is that an NIDS? Monster ads on it. Yeah, that's a network IDS. Yeah, that inspects network traffic as opposed to just the host. What is the name for malicious traffic that was not identified? It said it was okay. Did they call that a false negative? Did they call it malware? Did they call it spyware? Did they call it a false positive? False negative, an incorrectly identified negative, false negative. All right, let's see if it's false negative. Correct. Good job. You guys are on top of that. Yeah, the name for malicious traffic not identified is called a false negative. It said, oh yeah, there's nothing wrong there. There's nothing wrong. Nothing bad with that, but that was false. There was something bad. They missed it. What's the name for legitimate behavior that's identified as an incident? It blocks it. Says, wait a minute. We're going to block this. That's bad stuff. Spyware, false negative, malware, false positive. Yeah, this is something that said, hey, this is a bad thing, but that was wrong. It was not a bad thing. It was legitimate traffic identified as an incident. All right, last question. What is a network monitoring system that detects changes in normal operating data sequences and identifies abnormal sequences? Is that asset-based, behavior-based, signature-based, or time stamping? It detects changes in the normal sequences and identifies abnormal sequences. We talked about a lot of these terms. Which one of the terms is this? Behavior-based, signature-based, asset-based, time stamping? Detects changes in normal operating data sequences and identifies abnormal sequences. Oh, nobody's confident on this one. Yeah, is this going to be the signature base where it's checking against a pattern, Or is this behavior based where it can just check the normal behavior? Identifying abnormal sequences makes you think maybe behavior based. Let's try it. Yes, that is behavior based because it'll say, hey, something's not right there. That's a change in the normal behavior. Good job, Jacob. All right, that was our last question. Now it says, go do the reading and take the quiz. So let's bring this back down and go to the quiz. Let's take a look at that.
Yeah, I'm going to see if we can.
Start. An HIDS captures information from where?
Yeah.
An NIDS inspects all the traffic where? Which of the following is true of the signature based? Let's see, what's it called? What IDS flags legitimate behavior? And what are the audit records used for? 5 questions. There we go. Our usual 5 questions. Not bad. So, all right, guys. This begins our normal schedule. So Friday is an A-day. So we only have Thursday. If your grade is below 70%, which I'm not sure anyone in here is, because I believe most everybody's got. If you haven't got turned in, man, get the stuff turned in from last week's. Because if you haven't turned in last week's, then your grade is below 70%. So then you have to be a Thursday if it's below 70%. If you got everything turned in, good to go. I'll see you next Tuesday. Have a great week, guys.